Good day, my name is Kobicypher and welcome back to my channel. In this lesson, we will build a quiz application using React.js. So if you are ready, let's get started. We begin by setting up our project and then I'll do that using Vite. And so let's visit the Vite official documentation. I'll be using npm. If you prefer Yarn or any of these ones, you can just click on it and then copy the code. I'll be using npm, so let's copy the code. Let's go back to our terminal, we paste it. Of course, you hit enter, and then you give the project name, quiz application. It's that simple for us. Okay, you select the framework, we are using React, you select the language, we are using JavaScript, and then there you have it. That's fast. And so you cd into the quiz application, and then we open it in our favorite code editor. In my case, I'll be using VS Code, and so open it in your own favorite editor so we can code along. Now open the index.html file and then change the project title. In my case, quiz app, and then I'll add my channel name to it. So that's all we will do here. We close this, and then we go into the SRC directory. We open the app. Then we don't even need it, so let's just delete it. Next, we open the index.css. We clear everything here because we'll be writing our own CSS, and so that's what we have. Over here, I think let's even clear the whole thing. Let's clear from here, the app CSS. Let's clear the whole thing. Then we also clear everything here. Of course, we get rid of the state, and then we clear everything in here. We wouldn't need it. We just have to import whatever components we want to import over here. We will need to add our data set to the project, and so we open the source and then the asset. We delete whatever is there, just an image, we delete it, and then we can place our own data over here. So what we'll do is we'll open, let me just pause the video, copy, and then paste my data over here. But so let's go through it. This is the data, the background image, and then the data structure I'll be using in the application. So that is it. We'll be using the background image for the background, and then iterate over this list of objects and display them in the UI. Next, we need to focus on the structure of our project, and so it will be component based. So we'll create a components directory. Within that, we will create the quiz, what do you call it, the quiz directory, and then we will create our various files. And so let me do that. Okay, so these are the various files we'll be working with. I think we don't need the rest of the files, but let me just put something here so we can import it and then we can get rid of those ones. We go back to our app.jsx. We import the quiz component over here. And there you have it. Okay, so if you're having an error or a warning of something, you can just convert this one to a div instead of fragments, but I'll just leave it this way. I'll leave it as a div. It works regardless. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll save everything. Then we'll begin to work on the CSS. So what we'll do is we'll visit the font.google.com. You'll pick the font you like, pick your own fonts. I'll go for the pop-in. So you search for it in the search field. Then you follow along. You copy the code. You paste it wherever you want to paste it. That's up to you. You can either paste it in the HTML or you paste it in the CSS. Depending on where you want to paste it, where you want to paste it will be determined by the code you copy. And so if you copy it out of the link, then paste it in the index.html. If you copy it out of the style, then paste it in the style sheet. I prefer the style sheet, and so I'll copy this. Of course, you leave the styles out. You copy this, and then we paste it in our index.css file. And then we begin to apply our general CSS rules. And so pick this, the padding, we set it to 0. Margin, we set it to 0. And then if I can spell margin, okay, that is it. Okay, then of course, the box sizing also. Of course, then we move on to the body. If you want to add font family, fine. And then let me just add it. Since we are using the pop-ins, and just use the pop-ins and then use the fallback one, sans serif. Okay, let's move on to the body. This is where we apply our background image. And so use the URL, and then we copy the relative path of our background image. This one, paste. Of course, we have to change it to forward slashes. Yes. Okay. And we apply the other background properties. Yeah, I think I missed the quotation mark. I just placed it there. So we apply the other background properties, position, we center it. Then other one, which will be attachments, we fixed it. Of course, you have background, repeat. You don't want to repeat it. I should have just hit tab. Okay. Next, we have the size. You want it to cover it. Then you apply the other properties, colors, and then probably a few other things. So let's add the color. Let's add the font size, general font size, 16 pixels. Okay. From what I said, this is okay. Okay. This looks good. I think we don't need these files, some of these files, so we can just close some of these. And then we place our JSS and then the CSS file side by side, so we can see what you are doing. You can be picking the elements from here. Now, before we begin working on the UI, I think we should run our project and then have a look at it, because you have applied some CSS in the index.css file. So let's run our project and then we can have a look at it in the web browser. There seems to be an issue somewhere. I think we need to open our package.json file, check the script, and check if you don't have dev. You have dev. So what's the issue? Of course, you can check the same thing using npm run. Now, what seems to be the issue? I think it's my fault. I need to run npm install. Okay, so let's run that and then I'll get back to you. And so npm install is done. Now let's clear the terminal and run the project again. We copy the link. We launch our web browser. And then we paste it so we can have a look at the project in our browser. Okay, so that is it. That's what we have so far. Now we can continue building our UI in our editor. We don't need this, so we can close it and then we'll be working here. Let's get rid of this so that the error can go. And then we'll keep this for the meantime. We'll come back to it. Okay, so we will spend most of our time over here. We need to structure how our UI will look like. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll add a class, if I can spell class, and then we'll call it wrapper. This will be the main wrapper, more like the container. We get rid of this. Then our H1, which will be like the title. Okay, and then we need some line beneath it. So HR for the line, and then for the questions, H2. Okay, so for now, we will type quiz questions for now. Later on, it will be dynamic. Beneath the H2, we use a list to display the options that comes along with the questions. I showed you earlier on, each question has 4 options. Next, we have a button that will be for the next, to click to go to the next question. Beneath this, we can have another div that will house what you call the length of the question. It's more like 1 out of, if I can get it right, out of 10 questions. All these things are temporary. We update them as we go along. So from where I sit, this is the basic structure of our HTML. This looks good enough for us. The next thing you have to do is you have to go into the quiz.css file and apply some CSS properties to it. But even before that, let's go into the index.css file and then apply some general CSS rules to this. And so for the UL, we set the list type to none, the list style to none, sorry. And then the button, we apply these properties, more like the cursor pointer and then the border and the outline. We set all of them to none. Now it's time for the main event. And so let's go straight into the quiz.css, apply the properties. For the rules to be applied, we need to import the quiz.css in the quiz.jss file. Our design is taking shape. Let's continue. Let's see what you've done so far. So far, so good. Okay, let's continue. You can add more list items to the options over here, just so you can see how it will look like in the UI. Awesome, that is it for the UI. Now it's time for us to work on the logic. And so let's take a look at our data set again. This is the data, what we have. Remember, the options itself is also a list. So all you have to do is you have to import it over here, and then you iterate over it. It looks like I have an issue here. I think I'm missing something. Yeah, from. Next, let's focus on the state of our application. In React, state management is crucial for maintaining the dynamic behavior of components. Over here, we are utilizing the useState hook to manage the various aspects of our quiz application. Let me update this properly. I think I should get rid of this. We need to import useState. And for some reason, we normally keep it at the top. Okay, so let me cut it from here and put it at the top. With respect to the index state declaration, this state variable keeps track of the current question index in our quiz. It starts at 0, indicating the very first question. Next, we have the current question. This state holds the data for the current question being displayed. We initialize it with data index, so we start with the very first question from our data set. We also have the score state. This state keeps track of the user score in the quiz. It starts at 0 and increments as the user selects the correct answers. We also have the selected answer. This state stores the currently selected answer option by the user. It allows us to track the user's choice and provide visual feedback, if any. We also have the quiz completed state. This state indicates whether the quiz has been completed. Going forward, it will help us to determine when to show the final score and also when to disable further interaction on the button. Next, we have the log state. This state determines whether the user's answer selection is logged. It ensures that once the user has an answer selected, they cannot change it until the next question. After declaring all our states, the next thing we have to do is to handle user interaction. And so we have to implement click handlers, which will allow users to select answers. This way, you'll be able to provide visual feedback for correct and incorrect answers. And so we start with the handle answer option click function. This function is triggered when the user selects an answer option for a question. Of course, we begin by checking if the answer selection is logged. If it is, we return early to prevent further interaction. Next, we compare the selected answer with the correct answer for the current question. If the selected answer matches the correct answer, we increment the user score. We then update the selected answer state with the user's choice and set the log state to true. This prevents further answer selection. Next, we have the handle next click function. This function is called when the user clicks the next button to proceed to the next question. Within this function, we first check if there are more questions remaining. We do this by comparing the current question index with the length of our quiz data. If there are more questions, we increment the index state. If there are no more questions remaining, it means the quiz has been completed. By implementing these functions, we ensure smooth navigation through the quiz and an accurate tracking of the user's progress and score. Now that we have defined the core logic for handling user interaction, it's time to update the user interface accordingly. Within the H1, let's add expand elements that will hold the score. Of course, after doing that, we have to go into our CSS file and style it. I have just realized that I may have to repeat a couple of colors a couple of times. So then why don't we create variables and use them instead? Let's go on. I think we should rather update this name to test color. That sounds appropriate. To test it out, let's hard code a number here and have a look at it in the web browser. There is something wrong here. This is not the UI I was expecting. Let's go back to the code and figure it out. It's my mistake. To create a variable, you don't use double colon. You use single colon followed by root. It is working now. This is the exact UI I was expecting. It's now time for us to iterate over the data and display them in the UI. The H2 element will be used to present the current question to the user, along with its corresponding index in the quiz. The question text is fetched from the current question state variable, ensuring that users see the current question at each stage of the quiz. And there you have it. This is our question at index 0. Now, if we should go into the use state and then update or change the number over there, you will get the respective question. You can check it out. There you have it. Okay, let's reset it back to 0. Within our unordered list, we will present the answer options for the current question. Answer options will be dynamically generated using the map function to iterate over the current question.options array. Each answer option will be rendered as a list item with a unique key assigned for React reconciliation process. The class name attributes will dynamically apply styling based on whether the option selected is correct or incorrect. This way, we'll be able to provide visual feedback to the user. What will happen is that when the user clicks on an answer option, the handle answer option click function is triggered, which will allow the user to make their selection. Our options are not displaying as expected. There should be something wrong. Let's check it out in the code. I see what the issue is. This is supposed to be a parenthesis, not curly braces. Now let's go back to the browser and check it out again. And there you have it. The options are now displaying. Let's make the score dynamic. Let's move on to the next button. The logic here will be that a button with the label next is displayed only when an answer option is selected and the quiz is not yet completed. With respect to the question index indicator, a div with the class name index displays the current question index out of the total number of questions in the quiz. This provides users with a context about their progress within the quiz. Clicking the next button triggers the handle next click function, advancing the user to the next question. Although at this point the application is working as expected, we are not providing a visual feedback to the user. Let's work on that. We will apply styling to the correct and the wrong classes. Awesome. Now, depending on the option you select, you either have one with a green background or one with a red background. I don't have to tell you what those colors represent. Now, we need a way to check whether the user has completed the quiz or not. This is where UseEffect comes in. The logic here will be that we will utilize UseEffect to update the application state based on the changes to the index variable. This effect will be triggered whenever the index state changes, which occurs when the user advances to the next question in the quiz. Let's go ahead and import UseEffect. Within the UseEffect, you will have a conditional logic which will help us to check if the current question index equals to the total number of questions. If the condition is met, it indicates that the user has completed the quiz. In this case, we set the quiz completed state to true, signaling the end of the quiz. If the condition is not met, we update the current question state with the next question from our data set. Additionally, we will reset the logged state to false, allowing the user to select a new answer for the next question. We also reset the selected answer state to null, ensuring that the user starts with no answer selected for the new question. We then pass the index as the second argument to the UseEffect. This specifies the variables that the effect depends on. In our case, the effect is dependent on changes to the index state, meaning whenever the index changes, the effect is triggered, updating the application state accordingly. Now it's time to thoroughly test our application in the web browser. We get our first question, we select an answer, the button appears, we go to the next stage. Again, without selecting an option, you don't see the button. We select, we get an answer, or we get a visual feedback. We go to the next question in that order. So that's how the application works. The application dynamically updates the user score in real time based on the number of correct answers. Upon getting to the last question and selecting an option, the button is supposed to be disabled. It doesn't look like this is disabled over here. Let's go back to the code and check what is wrong. Of course, the button won't disable automatically. We need to implement the logic for it. And so we will pass the disabled attribute. The disabled attribute determines whether the button is disabled or enabled. Its value is dynamically set based on the quiz completed state variable. If the quiz completed state is true, indicating that the quiz has been completed, the button is disabled to prevent further interaction. If the quiz completed state variable is false, the button remains enabled, allowing users to proceed to the next question. We need to apply some styling to it. Let's do that in the CSS. Awesome. We refresh the page, we go through the same process again, but this time around we are interested in the last set of questions. And so let's move to the last set of questions. Okay, here we are. And so as soon as we select an option, the button changes, the button label changes to completed, and then the button itself becomes inactive, preventing the user from further interacting with the button. Awesome. And so in conclusion, our quiz app built with React is all about making the quizzes fun and interactive. With features like real-time scoring and seamless navigation, it is designed to be user-friendly and engaging. If you have any future updates and improvements, please put it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. I'll see you in my next video.